Welcome. Another series of explanations of the history of cards. And today we'll be speaking about score. It's the colorful era, 1988 to 1998. And a big part of score is to understand its connection with Pinnacle, as we'll see in the history. So the history really begins with Pinnacle. And the first time that we see them come out with cards is 1986 and under the company name of Optigraphics. We'll talk about more about this period in a little bit. After that, we have the actual occurrence and of the scorecards, and that's 1988. And then in 1992, the Pinnacle brand begins producing the Pinnacle cards, which are pretty varied and somewhat more high quality than cards had been in the previous years, certainly. Many were beginning to kind of be more higher quality in terms of the card stock and the gloss and the variation within the sets. 1993 was the introduction of the Select brand through Pinnacle, and one of the feature cards was the Select first draft pick, Derek Jeter. Then in 1996, the Pinnacle company acquired Donruss, which was, really going strong at that time. And so it was a nice acquisition for the Score or Pinnacle company. In 1998, the Rookies and Stars cards came on the scene, and the Pinnacle company signed low profits. The Pinnacle brands went out of business themselves, and its brand name and trademarks were sold to Playoff. And Playoff really was concentrating on football, basketball, and hockey. And they were part of a much larger organization of collectible, particularly cards, which was Panini Trading Cards. And you will hear this name as we get further and further in the history of cards, and they become kind of a monopoly, so to speak, almost like Topps. So that this 1986 kind of concept, but it was even before that it was started, is what was called lenticular printing. And that is where you find multiple images on trading cards. And the idea was it was a technique to show magic motion of the same player using three different pictures. So it looked like the player was actually hitting a ball or catching a ball or pitching a ball and so forth. And this 3D was something different, and amongst certain people, it was fairly popular. Again, it was not really Pinnacle that started this, because we see this occurring on cards that were inserted into boxes of cereals, Kellogg's cereals. So these Kellogg's 3D cards were somewhat popular and had many popular players. And so when you're trying to collect all the cards of a particular star, that sometimes you would kind of seek out these 3D cards, which were fairly colorful, and many of the major stars were featured on them. Then in 1987 and 1994, then the company came out with Sportflics, which was a whole series of cards sold as sets and so forth, in hobby boxes, whatever. And they weren't really that clear to kind of see the player, who they were, but they had certainly action contained within them, and must have been popular because they continued to produce them and sell them for several years. And then Sportflics with the ICS became Sportflics with the IX in 1995, and then Pinnacle sold them. And after that, we don't hear too much. Like I say, even though that Pinnacle began this, back in 1987, there was already popular in terms of the Topps people in 1968, where they actually produced this 3D set of these kind of motion cards in 1968. So going back to the kind of the score, we find that 1988 was the inaugural season for them, and it became a colorful card. So if we think of the cards that were available on Topps, probably one of the most colorful ones we can reflect on is the 1975, lots of color, different colors and so forth. And so when the score 1988 came out, it's very colorful because each card had lots of color, purple, yellows, greens, reds, and so forth, and the borders were different. So almost each card was somewhat different or unique in its own way because of the coloring. 1988 was the first new license entry into the hobby since Donruss and Fleer in 1981. So now, come 1988, we've got Score, we've got Fleer, we've got Donruss, and we've got Topps that are available to kind of purchase as different cards. So you wouldn't just get one rookie card, maybe you get rookie cards from all of the different sets. We also see that the inaugural set was plagued in terms of had a bad start because it was limited in terms of popular rookies that people were trying to collect and obtain. There just wasn't many superstar rookies in that particular year, and that kind of hurt the card industry. And certainly, Score being the new kid on the block, wasn't that. But we did have the card like Tom Glavine at the time. And then they kind of made it different by including a lot of different types of cards in their set, not just the players, but also like 3D cards, as we've mentioned. This will be kind of a theme throughout kind of Score's history. And then you even had pictures of ballparks or highlights from the World Series games, and that was the year that the lights went out in Candlestick Park. And they also included kind of cards as special players like Reggie Jackson of the Oakland Athletics. And but the set itself was often overlooked because of other sets that were already popular. And so they were competing with kind of known entities, and it was kind of looking to kind of find its place in the collector's world. So 1989, again, they're kind of real theme was creating a lot of different types of cards within their offerings. And these cards, though, weren't the colorful ones that we had seen in 1980. Maybe they were kind of too over the top with color. So it was kind of a white border. And some people referred to it as rather boring. What also may have been a detraction is the back of the card was very, very busy. The good thing about it contained a large color photo. So it had two photos of the player, kind of a close-up of their face, and then maybe an action photo on the front. And they continued to include the action cards and the motion cards. There was a better rookie class that particular year, so that kind of helped hype up sales and so forth. People trying to collect new players into the league with aspirations they'd be worth something someday. And you have the real popular highlight cards that they constantly produce. Kind of gives you a history of what was going on in baseball and what were the significant events that occurred during the history of the game. So that was all good. Well, it kind of continues that theme, as we'll see throughout its history now. And we find it has the regular cards, the rookie cards in 1990. And then what was kind of popular, again, trying to play off of the interest in rookies. You not only had the rookie card, but now you had the first round picks, of which certainly Frank Thomas was popular. And there was several others in this particular series that were. And you had other cards, Dream Team cards that were kind of quasi drawings, but quasi photographs, the highlight cards again. And it seems like during this period, the 90s, Nolan Ryan seemed to be on a lot of highlight cards. You have the 3D motion cards that are kind of consistent. And then you had these iconic cards. And there was two particular iconic cards that were available within the Score set that became very popular and kind of very wantable. So a lot of people, to get them, would buy the entire factory set and be assured that they were getting these two cards. And one of the cards was of Eric Lindros, who basically, went through the minors with Toronto, but his claim to fame was his skills as a rookie and a player in hockey for the Philadelphia Flyers. So in the Score set for hockey, you had this card that might be valuable in terms of hockey players. And then you also had him playing baseball. So it became a somewhat iconic card and kind of highly valued during this particular time. But the most iconic card was the card that many people who are in the collectibles kind of very familiar with, and that is the Bo Jackson 2-sport card, where he basically has a baseball bat and is wearing shoulder pads, and very intent on getting this card, having it in your collection. Unfortunately, because of the glut of cardboard that was available, again, certainly in the 80s and more so in the 90s, that it's a nice card to have, but the value is not that great considering its appeal. So 1990 for Score was a good year, and people really kind of went out and wanted the factory set. So lots of factory sets are available today unopened because of these two iconic cards. We've continued with Score, and now they're not only having variety within the sets, but they're also having insert cards, and then cards that you can basically build subsets and more subsets, and but they become different and kind of fun to collect. So you have they're first round draft picks become the fun card, rookie prospects, and then you have the regular rookie cards, and then you have hot rookies, which that whole set was just specific rookies that were hot when they came up. And then you have this kind of drawings, the clever kind of pictures of the all-star players of that year. You have Dream Team, which are these players that are out of character and posing in different articles of clothing and kind of very different to have as a baseball card. And then you have the franchises, the people who are going to kind of make their teams go, and the popular players. And then you, of course, have the highlight cards. And here's Nolan Ryan again, not only there, but also in terms of no hitters. And then you have Bo Jackson breaking the bat over his knee, which is a popular card. You have Cooperstown cards, you have Master Blaster cards, you have Rifleman cards, and kind of a unique card. Again, a lot of these cards are not of high value, but this kind of Ken Griffey Jr. and Ken Griffey kind of father and son card. And then 1992, we kind of continue with the same theme. We have the regular cards, the first round cards, which are popular, those drawings in terms of the most valuable player. We have the Dream Team. We have cards that from the All-Star game itself. We have impact players. We have superstar cards. We even go back and get legends, like we have a whole kind of subset of Joe DiMaggio. We have the ever-present highlight cards, Ricky Henderson breaking the record. And then we have the franchise player. And again, going back in terms of players that have just recently, perhaps over the last 10 or so years, retired, like Mickey Mantle or Yastrzemski, Stan Musial. And then there it is, Nolan Ryan again. And now we have the no-hit cards. 1993, continuing the theme, we've got some different cards in the packs that kind of make for interesting collection and subsets. Certainly the regular cards, the draft picks again. Now we have Rookie of the Year card, which is kind of unique because even though that seemed like a popular card to get, most of the card collectibles did not include that Rookie of the Year. So they kind of included that particular year, include the MVP players, the Dream Team again, in a regular kind of appearance, and they're wearing suits and not baseball gear. You have the highlight cards, you have the Boys of Summer, you have pictures of cards on the cards of players playing in the World Series games, or World Series cards, the franchise cards, again, and kind of a unique card in this particular set of a player who's kind of dressed retro in terms of his outfit and appearance. Then you have 1994, again, the Dream Team cards, the rookie cards, but also now you have a call-up card, and again, kind of trying to show the baseball parks, which is always interesting. Repeats again in 1995 in terms of rookies, more rookies, and then you have the Dream Team and other kind of special cards for special players. 1996 and 97, again, lots of different cards, and you kind of, really playing up what's going on in terms of records being broken, as you have the Cal Ripken kind of breaking the record, which became a real event in 1996. And 1997, you have kind of a lot of cards that are different and unique. But come 1998, Score, this is its last year, so Score will be no more. There'll be no Score cards, though that what is taking their place is Pinnacle is basically still producing cards, and then a card that kind of evolved out of Pinnacle and Score that were called Epics cards started to be on the scene. And then we have the era cards, which are always interesting and certainly are going to be in less of a supply. So you have the Ken Griffey Senior card, where you'll see his shirt says 30, but if we look at the back of the card, kind of under his name in the blue, it lists his shirt as 25. So they corrected that and made it 30. So it's an era card corrected. And then we have the Ryan Sandberg, and you'll see where his name is. On one card, you'll see his position, third base, and the other card is omitted. So they correct that and make it the same. You'll see that in the Nolan Ryan card, you'll see that the back is blue and on one card, and it's clear white on the other. Some of these things are not necessarily corrected, but they're different. So one card might be more valuable than the other, based on how many cards were made like that. If you look at the Bo Jackson, kind of very subtle, kind of insignificant, call it error if you will, but it's just that under the Score logo, you'll see one of the numbers is 91 is light blue, and the other one is dark blue, but a difference in terms of the cards and how many were paid of each color makes the card valuable than perhaps another card. You see on this Ted Simmons, not a big deal, but one of the errors is that the bottom of the card is corrugated. So therefore they corrected that and made it even and corrected that. And then you have the Earl Cunningham which should have get perhaps the same popularity as the Billy Ripken obscenity on the end of his bat. So there's an obscenity on the end of this bat that was corrected, but it never got as popular as the Billy Ripken bat. So that is pretty much score. And there's not a whole lot of value in any of the cards. I think the value maybe is the Bo Jackson 2 sport card, maybe the Eric Lindros, the rookie card and select of Derek Jeter has some potential. Some of the insert cards, some of the insert sets, if you have them all, may be of some value. But really, it's just a fun set to kind of go through and collect these kind of different cards, different pictures, and so forth. So that's kind of a summary of the kind of the history. It's only a 10-year history of score, and it kind of includes Pinnacle and Select and so forth, and then it's bought out, and so it continues under other names. And next time we'll kind of cover another card manufacturer. So we'll see you next time. Thank you.